97.3 City FM. Relevant radio, always.
Hi, my name is Nathan Kwao, and this is a City Sports special looking at Leicester City and trying to figure out how and why they won the title. And maybe down the conversation, we'll look at who stays up and who goes down in the Premier League. I've got former Bolton Wanderers forward, now marketing and advertising and media guru, Michael Potter. Michael, nice to have you here.
Nice to be here, Nathan.
First question, are you surprised that Leicester have finally put a full stop to that story and have concluded this fairy tale run?
Well, as you say, Nathan, the fairy tale's been going on week after week after week. Everyone's been waiting for Leicester City to trip up, but unfortunately it never happened. And of course, to be fair to Leicester City and to be fair to Tottenham Hotspur, this week we found out, what had happened. So I'm not surprised because, last month when they were still in ascendancy, I thought, what they have amongst other teams is camaraderie, team spirit. They have togetherness. They have the vision and the will to win. And, and at the end of the day, I'm not surprised that they've won the trophy. I mean, in the end, it was just too much for Tottenham Hotspur. So many points behind, and but they tried their best, but it unfortunately wasn't good enough.
I mean, if you look at this Leicester City team, a lot of people point out to the unit, but were there any standout players for you? Players who took that initiative and drove Leicester on to win?
I mean, what I think we've seen this year is, and we have to give some thanks to Nigel Pearson, because if you go back to last season, you can remember, they were threatened with relegation, and they had that great run towards the end of the season, which actually stood them in good stead for this season. So we shouldn't forget that. There was some groundwork done, and what I think the Leicester City team has evolved. When you look at that team last season, there was no real star players there. There were players who were performing well, but no real standout star players. But if you look at this year, things have changed slightly, and I always say if you're playing with good players around you, you improve as a player yourself. And I can pick a few players, like the skipper, Wes Morgan. He's shed I think at least 1 stone. He looks mean, fit, and this year he's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, his career has come to fruition this year. So there's one player I'd like to pick out. And also Robert Huth. Though the two of them have been the backbone of the Leicester defence. Robert Huth discarded by Arsenal and Chelsea, Stoke City. But what a player. He's been colossal this year. And then if you look at the forwards, of course, Jamie Vardy, he's had a brilliant season. Now a feature in the England team. And of course, we shouldn't forget Mahrez. What a season he's had. Player of the year, fantastic goals, and also players like Kante and Danny Drinkwater. In the midfield, they've been absolutely fantastic. It's like this sort of thing happens once every 100 years, I think. It's
no word for Claudio Ranieri.
And Claudio Ranieri, cometh the hour, cometh the man. And sometimes it takes the right person at the right place at the right time to be able to tinker around a little bit.
Everything coming together.
And everything comes together, and he's conducted himself very well. He's never said we're going to do this, we're going to do that. His philosophy was always, we'll wait for our next game, we'll see how we get on, and we just have to keep going. We believe in ourselves, and to be fair, you can see, he's got together a team, a fantastic team now. Team spirit very high, and congratulations.
Do you think they'll dream of doing this again next season? A lot of people are beginning to say that things will get back to normal. Man United might change coach, they will add to their team. Man City already have Pep Guardiola. Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp starting from zero will be very difficult. And people think that this is a one-off. Leicester can't do this again.
I think Leicester will have a number of challenges. First of all, will they be able to replicate what they've done this year? In all honesty, my answer to that would be no. Okay, I have to be a realist. However, saying that, they're already in the European Champions League. That's their prize, as well as winning the Premiership. And I think
the problem with Leicester is now is keeping that set of players together.
Okay.
That's going to be a big challenge over the summer months. You know, teams all around the world have been watching what's going on at Leicester and not frightened to offer silly amounts of money to prize some of these players away. That's the first threat. The second threat is I don't believe the squad is big enough, the current squad.
Okay.
You saw week after week after week more or less the same 11 players coming out, you know, the same squad. And you can't keep that up with a European campaign and a Premier League campaign, as well as the FA and the other domestic cup. So they've got to add to the squad and they've got to bring in some quality. Whether they have the money to do that, I don't know. But of course, they'll have the prize money for winning the Premier League, which is a lot of money. They'll also have prize money from the European Champions League, TV rights and all these things. So, you know, there's a lot of money coming through. But can you compare Leicester City with United, Arsenal, Tottenham? Probably not in the same league just yet.
I mean, just find out bit on Leicester. You've played the game before. As a player, how do you get yourself prepared for another season when you've already won your first Premier League and the excitement is just in the air? How do you get yourself grounded to push on for another campaign?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing players want to do after a long season, Leicester's not had necessarily a long season, they've not had long cup runs, but they've had a pretty hectic and pretty mentally tiring Premier League season. And I think what they'll want to do is to get the last two games out of the way. Of course, they've got to go to Chelsea on the last game of the season. And there's pride at stake. They'll want to finish with a high points total. They won't want to lose these last two games. But after the last two games have finished, the emotional, you know, the emotional experience and the emotional effects of winning the Premier League will have gone now. So they can just play their normal game, basically. After they've finished the Premier League, they'll take a break. All the players like to have a break. But you see, the problem with the Premier League, it comes round very quickly now, doesn't it?
About 90 days in between seasons.
Absolutely. So there's not a great deal of time to relax and focus. And of course, you know, you're back training probably 4 or 5 weeks before the season starts. You've got friendly matches coming up. Probably like
Vardy, he'll be in France for the Euros. Depending on even how long England go in the tournament, he could have a...
So, you're right, you know, and the likes of Vardy and Drinkwater, you know, will be going to the Euros. If England have a good run, get to the final, it could be July 10 before their season is ended, you know, and then they've just got a few weeks before we start again. So it's going to be tough. And of course, other Leicester players are international players. I'm not so sure if they're going to be involved in Euros, but one or two. So it's a challenge, and I think Ranieri will be the type of person who he'll be trying to keep that team together. He'll be looking to add 1 or 2 players of quality to that team, and he'll want them back. He'll want them focused, and you know, so they're relaxed and they're starting the next season. Of course, the fixtures come out. I think is it June sometime EPL fixtures. Yeah. But they'll have to prepare not only for EPL but also for the Champions League.
That's so twice the load now for Leicester City. Yeah. But from the top, let's go down to the bottom. Now, somebody you know quite well, Sam Allardyce, is neck deep in relegation problems. Now, he must get his Sunderland team to stay up. There's Norwich in the mix. Newcastle are not safe themselves. Villa are already gone. Which 2 teams do you think will go down with Aston Villa? Yeah. And on that same leg, which 2 teams do you think will come up from, which 3 teams do you think will come up from the Championship?
Yeah. If we take the Premier League first, unfortunately Aston Villa have continued on last season, and it's been mismanagement all around. So unfortunately they're in the Championship. There's not a lot we can do about them. So we've got 3 teams. We've got Norwich, Sunderland, and Newcastle in that order as they stand in the league at the moment. You know, you've got 2 teams, 2 Geordie teams from the northeast of England. Huge support there. Fans are very emotional. You've got 2 experienced managers, Rafa Benitez and Sam Allardyce, fighting it out. Norwich, I think they've not had a bad season, but in all honesty, the results aren't going their way. They had a great performance against Arsenal, but just couldn't quite get the point. I honestly believe, cutting a long story short, that Sunderland have this game in hand still on Newcastle. And I think that could be vital. Sunderland also have a better goal difference. I think at the end of the day, it may well go down to goal difference, but I think Sunderland may just have the edge. Newcastle fans won't be happy with me, but I think, you know, but last year, if you look at the league tables, Sunderland and Newcastle were very close to relegation.
Yeah, they were.
They've not improved. They've not improved even on last year. With all the comings and goings, they're still where they are, still fighting it for survival. It was the same story last year.
Okay.
So I think Sunderland will survive. Aston Villa, Norwich and Newcastle, I think, will get relegated.
Wow,
That's
so the
my view.
Revolution won't work for you.
He's a great manager, don't get me wrong. He's attention to detail, but Rafa's not used to fighting relegation battles. He's used to managing big teams who are going for big trophies, and I think the mentality is slightly different. And I think Sam Allardyce, year in, year out, that's his area of expertise,
We'll see how that works.
And of course, he's a former defender, Sam Allardyce. So
these teams have always been solid. Yeah. But in that same sense, which 3 teams do you think will come up? We know Burnley have already booked the place.
Yeah.
Now there's a 6-point up between Brighton and Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
And there are all these other teams fighting for playoff places. Which 2 teams do you think will come up?
Well, Burnley's already up, so congratulations to Sean Dyche and Burnley. They bounced back straight, fantastic. The Championship is a very, very difficult league. Very tough, so congratulations Burnley. Burnley fans are absolutely delighted. As to whether they'll survive next year,
that's a different story.
That's another issue.
Okay.
But then we've got second and third, Middlesbrough and Brighton respectively. Same number of points. 1 game left. Whoever wins that game, or I think Brighton have to win it to go up.
Yes.
Because of Middlesbrough's goal difference. So it's at Middlesbrough. Of course, we've got the Ghanaian boy playing for Middlesbrough, so you could well have another Ghanaian player in the English Premier League next year. I honestly believe, I was watching Middlesbrough and Bolton play just 3 weeks ago. Middlesbrough, well organised team. They're playing at home. I've got to go for Middlesbrough. So I think Middlesbrough will, with Burnley, be the 2 teams that get automatically promoted,
and
first and second respectively.
What happens in the playoff final?
Yeah, and then you've got, I think if I'm right, then there'll be Brighton if they're unsuccessful. I think Hull City's there. I can't remember the other 2 teams. But I think Brighton, on current form, may well win the playoffs and join Burnley and Middlesbrough in the Premier League. But anything can happen in the playoffs, we know that, don't we? Just because you finish 6th doesn't mean you're not going to win the final. It's happened many, many times.
Well, we'll see. Michael Potter, thank you so much for joining us. And that's been our special, looking at Leicester City and looking at the possible teams who could be coming up as Newcastle, Norwich and Sunderland battle to find which 2 teams will be joining Aston Villa down in the Championship next season. My name is Nathan Cole. Of course, this ties in brilliantly with our Barclays Premier League coverage this weekend. And of course, right up until May 15th, where the season ends, we'll find out who's going, who's staying, who's mid-table, and who gets that elusive Champions League ticket that is being thrown all about between Arsenal, Man City and Man United. Enjoy.